Hey there, you guys. I'm going to be doing a quick demo to further explain the value bar assignment. I went ahead and launched this today in class, and I'm going to explain today's assignment in Google Classroom in a little bit more detail right now, especially how to create these value bars, these four. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to use my webcam. So you'll see my sketchbook. I went ahead and made 1, 2, 3, 4 different value bars. I just traced them really lightly, and all I did was trace this ruler and then just cut them off a little bit, so I have a little bit of a border around my paper. Okay, so that's essentially it. I sharpened up, in this case, a 3B pencil, and went ahead and started to, again, hold it kind of in this angled way. Lay some graphite down. This is going to be the dark side, and this is going to be the light side of all the value bars. And I'm just going right to left at the moment. Went all the way down here. Now down here is really light, especially with this B pencil. I got to be careful. I actually want this to be pure white right at the end and really dark at this end. Okay, so to change things up, I'm going to switch my hand position and go against the grain, or the opposite direction of what I just did. Lighter each time. I got to be careful. I'm kind of creating a dark spot here where I overlap. That's one of the things you want to try to control and avoid. And I'm going to keep this really light down here. Okay. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to use a little bit darker pencil, a 4B, make sure that that's sharpened up really good, and darken the side of the value bar where it's supposed to be the absolute darkest. Okay, so I'm going to use the 4B here. And I'm just going to press pretty hard, make sure you guys can see that. I don't know if it's trying to autofocus or what it's doing, so bear with me here. And just kind of get along here and really darken that. If I want the full range of tone, I want this to be really dark. Get lighter and lighter as I go. See, I'm holding my pencil slightly different now because I want to put a little bit more direct pressure to get this to be a little bit darker. But the important thing is as I shade, I don't want a definitive like spot where you can point out like, oh, right here he stopped pressing hard. No, I want it to be really smooth and really gradated. So that's the idea. Let's see here. Not looking too bad. Okay, as my first one anyway. Okay, so that's kind of the idea of how that should look, for the most part anyway. And yeah, so I think because this one has some stuff out of the lines, I'm going to use a scrap piece of paper and cover that up. Just a little bit, and erase, just so I get a really clean line through this. See how I kind of clean up the edges? Looks really good that way. Do the same thing here. It's actually called an eraser shield if you want to get all technical. Erase that. Especially helpful if you got a lot of smudges. Not to touch that too much. Oops. That looks good. So that one I'm done with. I'm going to actually call this the raw graphite. Okay, so that's my first value bar. That'll work. And this next one is going to be the blended version of that. Okay, so I'm going to start the same thing. I think I'm going to jump right to the 4B right away on this. It's very much like this, except for I'm going to use my blending tool. Okay. If I slow motion this, I'm doing small ovals. Okay. I'm not really going strictly back and forth like that. It's just a little bit more fluid to do those ovals. Try to stay in the lines. And just pull that down the whole way. Till it's almost the, as light as possible. Come back the opposite direction. Notice how I'm holding my pencil. Kind of get those edges first, and then darken as I go. And like that, it's a good start. I'm going to change pencils and go to my 3B. If you're just using one pencil, you're just trying to fake those different pencils by using different hand pressure. So I'm going to darken this in. You can see I'm holding my pencil a little bit differently now because I need a little bit more pressure. Define those edges, but don't outline. And then get a little bit lighter as I go. Come back in here. Go this fourth direction. Really light through here. This pencil, this 3B wants to drop pretty dark. So what's happening is I'm getting something a lot like the raw graphite version, but this one's going to be blended graphite. I'll label it now just so you understand. Now I get to start to use my blending tool at this point. And I'm going to use this darken side of my blending tool. You guys can use the tool that I gave you. And I'm just going to start to move back and forth across here. And it smooths that blending right into the paper. And I also want to vary my hand pressure as I pull down. See the ovals again. Lighter, lighter. There's a lot of graphite on this, so I have to be careful down here, or I'll actually add graphite where I didn't because of how dark that is. So I'm going to come back up here and kind of go a little bit different direction. Why all the different directions? Because it disguises the motion or the direction I was using with my pencil. And it also fills in the tooth of the paper, which we'll talk about a little bit more next time. So there we go. The second value bar is coming along nice. Okay, not bad. I think I can go back over the top of it with my 4B and just really define this edge just a little bit and shade away from that line I drew just to darken that a little bit more. And that's what you do if you have a spot that looks like it's not quite dark enough on this end. This, again, this end of the value bar should be really dark. This should be really light. There we go, that looks good. If you add a little bit too much, like kind of these smudges here, I have a kneaded eraser. I know some of you have that with you. If not, just use the regular eraser and you can kind of erase back in there, lighten that up, pull up some of that. That looks good, okay? If I really wanted to geek out, I could cover this up again and erase a really clean line on here. But I tried to stay in the lines pretty good, so that actually looked good. All right, so that would be my second of the 4. Okay, I'm going to work now on the ink. So at this point, I'm going to transition and start to use the ultrafine Sharpie, and this is the cross-hatched. I'll go ahead and put ink there. Okay. Because I want this to be the dark end and this to be the light end, I want to really pile up the hatching. Here's a good example right here. This is, I'll line it right up with that. That's essentially what I want to do here, is go from this dark all the way to light using diagonal hatches. So I go one direction and then I cross hatch by going perpendicular to that. But notice I I widen out how far those hatches go. Okay, so a quick demo on that, and it's pretty basic, is I'm going to hatch really close together down here, almost completely black, and you'll get in a rhythm here. And I wouldn't geek out and use a ruler for this, just freehand it. I'm kind of pivoting off of my wrist a little bit as I do this, okay? Now at some point you're gonna want to start to establish a gradation from dark to light. So my organization of this here is that these are gonna start to get a little bit farther apart as I go. And we talked about ink doesn't give you the option to vary pressure. So you have to space out how far apart they are. It kind of looks like it got dark really fast right here. So I'm just gonna come back in there and add a few more. And if they cross over each other, I mean, don't beat yourself up over it. Just do the best you can. Put in some of these half marks. That looks cool. Okay. So then what I'm gonna do now is I gotta switch my whole scenario because I'm a righty. And I'm gonna come back perpendicular to this. And put these really close together. At least until I kind of get to the corner there. And then the same thing, I'm gonna start to space these out as I come forward. It's looking pretty good. I could almost stop there. Well, I'm getting some smudges from the graphite on my palm. I'll clean those up with my kneaded eraser here in a second. But if I want a true gradation, this isn't completely black. And I think I just will come back in there and just sort of define the edge of this a little bit. And then just hatch a little bit more, do some free hatching right on top. Free hatching just means I'm not trying to be super organized anymore, okay? Because that might kind of keep you from getting this to look good as a gradation. Just kind of pile up some more hatches down here. Okay, enough that direction. Let's come back one more time here. Now we're getting somewhere. So now we have really established kind of a darker end to this thing. Not bad. So there's 3 value bars so far. You have your raw graphite, unblended, blended graphite, and cross hatch ink. Okay, so we'll end this demo here to get some of the graphite off my hand. You actually use the blending tool, or excuse me, the kneaded eraser. Get that off of there. I noticed there's some down here. I love this eraser. And it gets dirty and you can just smash it back together, clean it up. All right, my last one, and to avoid getting all smudged up here, I'm gonna kind of block that off. You can see it's really faint, but I have another box here cordoned off, and this is gonna be called stippling. Okay, and stippling is really mindless in terms of just the technique here, where you're making dots, and I'm gonna pile up this end. Until it's really dark, okay? Because I need this full range of tone where it's really dark down here. So to do that, there's just gonna, this is the hardest part of this one. It's just piling these up. And if you don't have a Sharpie, this could be really difficult to do with a ballpoint pen. So look around, see if you have something like this. You might even have a set of like fancy pens or even some fine line Crayola markers that might work. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is start to bring the dots out here. and fast forward, essentially what I'm going to do, I'm not going to show you this because, you know, you guys will be here for forever watching me. I think it would take me probably about 5 minutes to get a great value bar, which isn't too much to ask. And down here, they're going to be spaced out even more. Okay. So what down here in your lightest end is going to be just a few dots. And then I'm going to just keep piling these up until it gets darker this way. That's called the full range of tone. So fast forward in just a moment, I'll have a finished version of this stippled, and I'll post that photograph along with, you know, this video that explains how this assignment goes. So if I turn these in right now, I'll be doing pretty good. I mean, minus a little bit more work on this guy. And yeah, that's how to do value bars. So